Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. I hope everybody's excited as I am for fixed assets. It's one of my favorite areas of the system to work in. So what we'll be doing today is covering a comparison of both the SFAM, which is Sage Fixed Assets Management module, and the SIG Fixed Assets module. After the comparison, we'll do a demo on each one and then just wrap everything up. So we'll have a couple housekeeping items first to go through. So I'm Adam Beyer, implementation team lead here at JMT Consulting. Been with JMT for about 2.5 years, in a variety of different roles, working with clients, client projects, education, implementations. I'm sure a lot of you have had meetings with me before. And if not, it's a pleasure to meet you all. Prior to joining JMT, I actually have 5 years experience on the user side of Intacct, so very broad-based and understanding both sides of it. A couple housekeeping notes. If you have a question, please submit your questions in a question box in the control panel on the Zoom window. We'll cover the questions at the end of the webinar. These topics are very dense, and the demos themselves are very dense, so I want to make sure we get through all the material and leave plenty of time to answer your questions. One question I know that's going to come up: what is the cost? And that's obviously one of the most important questions that you may have after going through this. If you have questions on the cost, please reach out to your client account manager and they'll be happy to provide you a cost, not only the yearly subscription, but the time involved in setting these modules up. Today's recording and slides will be emailed to you following the webinar. It's also eligible for 1 CPE credit. To receive the credit, you'd have to actively respond to polling questions. There will be 4 polling questions throughout. You'll need to answer at least 3 of them, and then complete the survey that will pop up at the end. You'll also have to stay on for the duration of the webinar. Little plug for our annual conference coming up in May 2026. We will be in Washington, D.C. for our Innovate conference next year. It's always an exciting time. It's two-day long conference in which we'll have a variety of activities. There are a couple engagement activities that we do each year. Always a great time. If you went last year, you might recognize me from one of them. These sessions are fantastic. We have great speakers this year, and there are a few additional speakers that will be announced at a later time. Learning objectives for this webinar be a comparative session between SIG and the SFAM module. All knowledge levels, it's geared towards those who have the SIG fixed assets module at the moment or do not have either module but have the need to implement, to move away from your manual processes so that you can more automate this and make it a less of a pain on your month-end process. You'll learn the basic functionality of each module. Like I mentioned, it's very dense. This topic is extremely dense in the functionality of each module. So I will give a brief overview of the standard functions, how to add an asset record in through the accounts payable integration, how to post depreciation, and looking at other components as well. We'll cover CIP briefly. CIP is a component of the SIG fixed assets module, but it's not on the new SFAM, at least as of this moment. So we will cover that briefly as well. Where JMT operates, this is a map of where all of our clients are. They're really spread throughout the country, kind of heavily centralized in the Northeast, but we are throughout the country. Our HQ is in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, which is just right outside of Nashville. It's about JMT here. Here are some of our partners for ERP solutions, budgeting and planning, HR management, automation, reporting and AP, CRM solutions, and outsourced accounting by our own Power Up task team. And again, just an overview of the agenda, comparison between both modules, demo on each, and then time for questions at the end. So first we'll start discussing the SFAM module, Sage Fixed Assets Management. This first column here, challenges without any module. So if you're doing it manually, it's a painful reconciliation. Could be missing tax depreciation. You'll get errors from manual postings. It takes way too long to book depreciation each month. You're always running into possible issues where your depreciation schedules might not be in line with the straight line, how it needs to depreciate. It's very tedious and time consuming. The benefits of this module, the asset, and this is what's cool. This is what's really cool about the new module versus the SIG fixed assets module. The asset is now a dimension. So just like your other dimensions in Intacct, you can now utilize this asset dimension in reporting structures as a dimension structure to report on, to code to in your transactions. So there's a huge benefit to this new module. Multi-book depreciation, automatic depreciation posting too. So instead of having to go in, and we'll see this in a demo, it is a very straightforward process in each one, but instead of having to go through the manual process of posting depreciation each month, you can actually set it up to automatically post. Huge benefit too of this new module is that it is now native to Sage Intacct, so it does receive its quarterly release updates. So any improvements that are made, and we're waiting on a few huge ones too, CIP being one of them, and a conversion from SIG fixed assets over into SFAM. We're waiting on those, but within one of the next upcoming releases, those should be available. And then better reporting, like I mentioned, because the asset itself is now a dimension, so you can really utilize that just like you utilize any of your other dimensions for reporting purposes. Couple screenshots of the interface. So this first section here, this is the page, the lister page here, shows a nice, very straightforward module here. Not a whole lot going on, which makes it nice and easy to use. Screenshot to the right. This is the header information on your asset record. So it just gives a brief overview of what that asset record is, and we'll see more details when we go into the demo environment. And this is the asset lister page. So it utilizes the new lister pages. So searchability makes it a lot easier, more of a modern look than your existing lister pages. Now go into a demonstration. So currently in a demo environment that is set up for SFAM, when I click on the fixed assets management module, we see what we saw in the screenshot here. Nice straightforward layout, very easy to use, very easy to find what you're looking for. What we'll first do is just do a brief overview of the configuration settings. And this is one of the major differences too between SIG and SFAM. That's configuration based because it's subscription based. So there's less of a setup time in the beginning to get you up and running on this, since it's configuration and not an actual installation of a custom application. Benefit here, we have an asset ID sequence. You might recognize this from your vendors or your customers in Intacct. Anytime you create a new fixed asset record, it will auto-generate the next ID in a sequence, so you don't have to come up with your own naming scheme or have to enter that in manually. Your journal posting rules defines the journal, the convention, and useful life units. So whether it's a monthly depreciation, yearly, or semi-year. Both modules have accounts payable integrations, so you can create assets from bills, and a little more complex, but you can also create assets from purchasing transactions. Typically, I like to utilize the accounts payable integration as the source of entering in a new fixed asset record because it's a little more straightforward, always functions nicely, and it will automatically create a new fixed asset record in your assets list in a review state. So we'll go through together, run through this further later on in the demo. Here's that automatic posting. So if this is checked on, Intacct will automatically post your depreciation schedules. Now, great benefit, hit or miss if you want to use it. A lot of people would like to just actually go in to review before posting, but it is an available option. And then if we could have that first question come up, Luke. You can also preset in your asset transfer on disposals. So disposals are a component of both of the modules. So you would have your gain and loss account here listed and the journal. You go live date, and this is all, we don't have to cover this because that's all a component of how we set it up. So just going back into the module itself, let's take a look at the asset classes. Before we get into asset classes, I want to highlight this asset group. This is just like your other dimensions in which you create groups, let's say department group, location group, any type of group you create to then add a dimension structure and add it to a financial report or to use that group as a filter. So that's listed right here, the difference between the asset group and then your asset classes. These are your actual asset classes. It's at this stage that you assign your GL accounts. So your asset GL account, accumulated depreciation account, and depreciation expense account. You can also preset in your disposal account to help when you create disposals so that it automatically gets coded to that GL account. Take a quick look at one of these. Click on buildings. So we have the asset class ID, the name, your GL account assignment, and it's at this point that you establish depreciation rules. So depreciation method, whether it's straight line, most common, your journal posting rule, and which assigns the useful life in the months. One current limitation with this module, you can only have one asset GL account per asset class. So I know after working with a lot of you that are probably on this call, you do have the need to, let's say buildings, for example, have buildings depreciate over 360 periods, 480 periods, and so forth. We have our workaround by not assigning the useful life directly on asset class, but by leaving this blank. It adds in an additional step when you create a new asset. You just have to enter in the useful life before placing that asset in the service. So while a slight limitation, there's a workaround that will get you 100% of the way there, that things function correctly. Take a look at the asset records. The asset records lister page. What is nice about this too, and just like throughout the system, you can do this, but you can create new views. So if you want to drag and drop reorder things, you can do that by creating a new view. You can even do that here in existing view. So I just switched asset name and state around. So you don't even have to create a new view to do this. And this is actually an inherent function of the new lister view, the enhanced lister view functionality. Searching also removes the need to have that hotkey, that percentage sign to actually search on something that contains. Anything that says contains here is that function. Your state's ready for review in service. In service means that that asset is in service and either ready to begin to depreciate or has been depreciating. Ready to review. This is the state that when you create a new asset record, it will go into the state. Depreciation schedules have not yet been generated. So anything in review will not automatically post until you place in the service. So just clicking on an asset ID. Oh, I actually wanted one in service. Got ahead of myself. And also too, you may notice this is functioning a little slower than you may be used to throughout the system. That is partially because we are in a demo environment and this is built on enhanced lister views. So it is a little slower. It's much more quicker when you're actually in your production environment. So let's just take a look at an in-service asset. From the screenshot from the PowerPoint, we see this here. So this is the summary at the top. All the additional information here, the state, whether it's in service and review, the source. So when you're creating a fixed asset record from an AP bill, you'll have a direct hyperlink back to that source bill. So if I click on that hyperlink, this pop-up window opens. and we see that source bill. Asset cost, description, your asset class information here, depreciation rules that are assigned to this asset, then your dimensions, all of your dimensional coding. Now, I'll highlight this here. And you'll know if we went through the setup together, but also too going forward, when you're creating fixed asset records, it is very important that you include all of your required dimensions when creating an asset record through the accounts payable bill that are required on that asset's depreciation expense account. That is the most common reason we see errors when you go to post depreciation, is that it's missing a required dimension that's on that GL account. So one thing to be mindful of, we have shortcuts that we put in place to help prevent that, usually through a SMART rule. If you're using AP integration too, it will definitely help enforce this. On the depreciation schedules tab, we can drill into depreciation schedules. And this one's kind of set up differently than how we would normally set it up. There's two depreciation rules associated with it. So we have a straight line and double declining balance. But let me just click on the straight line here. I click on view. See the depreciation schedule entries. So all these schedules here, these first 5, these have been posted. That state has been posted, gives you a cumulative depreciation amount, your monthly depreciation amount, the scheduled date and actual posting date. There's also a hyperlink directly to that journal entry. If I click on that hyperlink, it'll take you to that journal entry that was created. That is also the best way, no matter what system you're operating in, this is the best way to go to the source, that journal entry that was posted for depreciation for that month for this asset. Your fixed assets journal, as you post more, as years go by, you're posting more and more. It's going to be very difficult to search in the journal itself. But if you go to that source asset record, you can easily drill in to see the postings. Now we'll actually post depreciation. Posting depreciation, once you go through that function, it'll take about 5 minutes or so before it updates in post. 5 minutes on average. The more depreciation schedules you have to post, it might take a little longer. The great thing is you can go in, go through the process of posting, and then go about your day. Do other things you need to do, and just come back to it to make sure that everything posted correctly. It didn't run into errors. So we'll go through the steps to post depreciation, hop into how to utilize the AP integration, and then go back to see the posting. For post depreciation, go to post depreciation. So we have all of our schedules here. So the way this module works is the best way to utilize this page is to enter in the date that you want to post for. So each one of these schedules are generated for the end of the month. So let's say we're posting, just see May right here. So let's say we're going into post May 2025. Enter that into your date. You'll see those schedules that need to be posted. You can select all and then go to post. It is important that you do this step, because if this is left blank, let me just take that out again. Now let's flip this around. This page lists all of your depreciation schedules that are not posted. So very important, if you were to go in and select all, that you are not leaving this date blank and selecting all, because you will end up posting into the future. And that's something we definitely want to avoid, because it'll take a lot to clean up. So not posted here, and then just put in your date. So let's go back to May. To actually post, just select those schedules that you wanted to post. If you want to drill into, you can drill into it back to the asset ID. This will take you to the source asset record, so you can review any information before you select it. But select your schedules, click post depreciation. Please always leave this blank. Overriding the posting date has a specific use case, but if you were to override the posting date, it does not change the schedule date. So your GL is not going to be in line with any module reports and not in line with your schedules. So please always leave this blank. If you feel you might have the need to override this, let us know and we'll be happy to guide you through that. Let's just go to post. So now that's running in the background. I'm going to click view status here. That will take us here. This is the status. So the run itself, we have this one schedule that's going to post. It's currently in a queue state. Usually it stays in queue for 3 or 4 minutes or so. So as to not just sit here and wait, let's move on to the accounts payable integration. We'll come back to this one. So using a different tab. The integration is nice and smooth. So the process is creating a new AP bill. Just select the vendor here. Just like you would normally create an AP bill, all the information that you need to enter in. The two differences here, the GL account. So you'll want to use a GL account that's assigned to an asset class. That's very important. So buildings SFAM, that is tied to our buildings asset class. Put an amount here. 50,000. Call this new building asset. Let's just select these other dimensions, make sure we have all of our requirements. Look at the description. And the integration will trigger once you post that bill. So if you do have AP approvals, AP bill approvals in place, once it's approved and in a posted state, that's when it'll create a fixed asset record in review. Okay, we also have spend management on. So I'm just going to click through that. Now that bill has been posted, $50,000 bill. So it doesn't even need to be paid at this point. All it has to do is be posted for the integration to function. I go back to the assets list. Now we have that new building asset ready for review. And click into that. See the attributes that came over. The source AP bill will take us back to that accounts payable bill. The depreciation rules associated with that asset class, and all of your dimensions that you coded that line to on the accounts payable bill. So it's ready for review, which means that even if you go to post depreciation, you actually don't have any schedules generated yet. So to place in a service, click place in a service on the top right. Your in-service date, which means that you can modify this. Let's say that bill was dated for 10/23, but we don't want depreciation to start until November. We could place 11/1 for the in-service date. And those schedules will start to generate for 11/30 and forward. Go to save that. Might take a couple minutes for this to generate, but let's take a look and see if we have schedules. Look at that, nice and quick. So the first scheduled date, since we changed in service to 11/1, first schedule is posted, will be posted for 11/30. When the state not posted. All the schedules have been generated. Nice, easy process. Hopping back over to reviewing the depreciation posts. We go back to this tab. Refresh it. And it was a success. We have this posting was successful, no errors. If there were an error, it would give you an error message, tell you why. Like I mentioned before, most common errors typically are missing dimensions that were just missed on asset creation, but are required on your depreciation expense accounts. So successfully processed. I click on the hyperlink for the journal entry, take me directly there. Luke, we can probably do the second question now. And everybody who's filling out this question is kind of geared towards SFAM. So there are different tiers on SFAM. So it gives us a better idea on what tier you might fall into. We'll begin with SIG Fixed Assets. So SIG Fixed Assets is a custom application, which means it is not native to the system, but it is an installed package. It functions very nicely with the rest of the system, as it does have the AP integration, just like SFAM, and it does post your journal entries to your fixed assets journal. Go back to this here. So highlights, you manage your asset acquisition, depreciation, asset disposal. I did miss this with talking about SFAM, but you do have disposals. We can also run through a disposal if we have time within SIG. But automate your depreciation posting through recurring entries that are, so this might be slightly deceiving because we just talked about the fully automated depreciation posting in SFAM. This automated process is that as you go through those couple clicks that we'll cover in about 15 minutes or so, then it'll post automatically for you. But there isn't a automatic trigger that you can just set it and it just does it on its own. But it's still a very nice, straightforward process to do this every month. Now, you gain insight into your assets dimensional visibility. There are module reports that you can run. The roll forward report's the most encompassing report for the module, but it's a little more limited on a reporting standpoint because the asset is not a dimension like it is in the new module, and it's a custom application, so it's a little harder to pull in fields. But you have the ability to track additional asset information. So if you have any insurance details, any warranties, maintenance logs on the asset, there are more fields that you can code to. And on the right side here, we have a standard workflow. So really 3 different levels to an asset record. You have the financial book. So the book details, that is at that point that you assign the depreciation method, the convention on the financial book, and its asset life. You then assign it to an asset class, which identifies all of your GL accounts. Create your asset records, then review, place your asset records in a service, which will generate your depreciation schedules, and then finally post depreciation. There are multiple ways to create a fixed asset record directly through an accounts payable bill, through a manual entry. So you can manually create a record into the module and then import the file. And that's how we set up your historical assets to get them in the system, is through an import file. Import file is a little different than you're used to. It's not this standard template. It's more of a mapping exercise. So this is one area I really don't cover in detail. Usually it's great for setup, but your best bet is to always create that fixed asset record directly through an accounts payable bill. Then post depreciation with a few clicks, and the roll forward report. This gives, there's a couple additional fields here, but this gives a overview of what that AP integration looks like, and we'll create one together. We get to our demonstration. So I have a different demo environment up here that has SIG Fixed Assets installed. This is the components list. So a little more information here. then is on the SFAM module. It's more of a lister view as opposed to a nice clean functionality view. And but one key difference, CIP. So if you do use CIP, work in progress, the need to accumulate expenses under one CIP asset to then later capitalize into one asset record, this is still your module to select. CIP should be coming at some point soon in the next few releases. We still don't have a definitive release date yet, but it should come at some point early to mid next year. Just taking a look at the book details here. These are the financial books. Our naming schemes for this fin_SL_asset life makes it easier to then identify with your asset class. Just clicking into one of these, you'll see the asset life. Depreciation method, this is an auto-generated number from Intacct itself. However, this means straight line in this instance. And your asset class. Any asset classes that are tied to this financial book. Convention is a monthly convention, and anything that's, let's say, a land asset that doesn't need to depreciate, it's here that we click this do not depreciate button on. We have put asset life of 0, and that makes sure schedules are not generated for that asset. Into the asset classes. So the asset classes, each one of these has your asset GL account. And as opposed to SFAM, we have the flexibility, you can see that listed right here. We do have the flexibility of taking one asset GL account and making multiple asset classes associated with it. So this makes it a little easier for those of you who need to split things out, equipment 84, 82, 60, we have a lot here. Gives us a little more flexibility with that. But your accumulated depreciation account, depreciation expense accounts, and its associated financial book. The asset records. Click on the assets page. So you have different preset views here. So to see all assets, click on all assets. And you have the full page here. Kind of a lot going on. It's not as streamlined of a view, but you do have the flexibility of changing the view by editing this view or creating a new one. One view I do like here is the assets by class. A little more condensed, breaks it down by class, a little easier to search for things. If I click on one of these asset records, make sure I got one that's depreciating. Yes. Have the asset information up here, everything from the asset cost, the date placed in service, the asset class associated with it, its name, status, whether it's in service, in review, or disposed. This is dynamic as well too. So this due depreciation, this just means this is what's due relative to today's date. The total accumulated depreciation and remaining depreciation. Every time you post a schedule, this will update. The assignments list, these are your dimensions. So these are all the dimension codes associated with this asset record. Additional tabs here, some of these I'll just quickly go through. You have the ability to add a photo, your vendor bills. This one didn't come from an AP bill, but if it did, it would have a hyperlink to your vendor and the hyperlink to the AP bill. Don't have to worry about status change. Financial depreciation. This is the tab to see all of your schedules that have been generated for this asset. So all in a created state, nothing has been posted yet. But just like in SFAM, once you post, this status will change from created to posted, and you will have a hyperlink to that GL batch listed right here. These additional tabs here, tax depreciation, service details, insurance details, system information gives you a basic audit trail on this asset. So first we'll take a look at the accounts payable integration. So just like SFAM, if you go into create a new fixed asset, or sorry, a new accounts payable bill, just like you would normally enter in a bill. The main driver here of this AP integration is that GL account that you use in this field here on your entry line. You want to use an asset GL account that's associated with an asset class. Kind of similar to the SFAM integration that you do need to pick that account as well. But selecting an account here, and you'll see this when I enter it in and then tab over, it opens up the show details window to have a few more fields that you'll have to fill out. So just do buildings and improvement. I'm just going to tab. Once I tab over, this drop down pops up. We have these 4 fields. All 4 of these fields would have to be filled out in order for the integration to function. So your asset class drop down. If you had multiple, let me just go back here because I know equipment has them. I select equipment, tab over, that changes. If you have multiple asset classes associated with that one asset GL account, they'll all be listed here and you can select which one. That's where this naming scheme makes it very easy. We don't just want to call them equipment 1, 2, 3. It gives you that asset life that's specifically associated with that asset class. So select that. Your asset GL posting date can be the same date as the bill. We'll do this test equipment. Date placed in service. Do today. We could do 11/1 as well. I'm just going to do it as of today. Physical location. You can have physical locations if you need to as an additional way to track your asset records. There's nothing listed in this demo environment, but you can create them and then assign them on the asset. It's not needed for the integration to function, and it's only not as common to use, but it can be helpful in certain situations. So once that's filled out, you can continue to enter in the rest of your dimension requirements. Let me pick that. Apartment, site, and about. Go into post. So now it's been posted. So if we go in here, we might have to give it a couple minutes. So I think what we'll do is skip over to post depreciation. I'll just do a quick check here, but usually it takes a couple minutes for this integration to function. We may not see that readily entered. Yeah, just this one. That's a different record that I was testing with earlier today. So let's come back to that in a couple minutes and go into post depreciation. Post your monthly depreciation, you go to depreciation schedules. And a lot of times you'll end up on a different page here. So just switching pages, all depreciation schedules here, they're all listed. This part right here is extremely important. You'll always want to use due depreciation. This way, the page layout, the parameters are set up for filtering and dates. This will only give you everything prior that needs to be posted. So since we're 10/23, not yet at the end of the month, it will only give us schedules through 9/30/2025. So if I just flip this around, 9/30/2025. If you use some of these other page layouts, just like in SFAM, if you don't filter on the date itself, some of these other pages will include future schedules. And if you go to select all, you're going to post into the future. And that's something you definitely don't want to do. But once you get that all set up, normally go month by month, you would just have your monthly schedules here. Click the select all depreciation schedules. That will highlight everything here. I'm not going to do this one. That will take a few minutes longer than we need. Just going to deselect that. But you would select all. And just click on one schedule. More actions. So once you select your schedules, I'm just going to post this one. Go to more actions and post depreciation. You have the option to do a post depreciation summary. I do not recommend it. The summary itself, it creates less journals within your fixed assets journal, less entries into your fixed assets journal. The problem is it consolidates information together in groups based upon dimensional coding, and it's very difficult to see individual scheduled posting. If you ever have to reset an asset record and you're using post depreciation summary, you usually have to then reset all asset records or everything associated with that summary to then fix that one asset. So if you post depreciation here, it creates an individual schedule for each asset. Now let's go to post. And this is an older version. Because it is a custom application, it does not receive quarterly updates. It is version controlled. So every 10 or 12 months or so, they'll come out with a new version. I have an older version, probably 8.4. 8.5 is the latest right now. Always leave override blank. You can add comments if you want. They'll send an email upon completion. I'm going to click yes. One more time, click yes. And Luke, we could probably do the third question. So normally you can just click through, click done. I like to click here. So open up another tab, and this takes you directly to the fixed asset log. So the system is now running in the background. You don't have to do, well, already completed. That was nice and quick. Normally, if you have more schedules, it's going to take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes or so. If you have 1,000 schedules, it might take 12 to 15, but it'll be running in the background. If you decide not to click on that hyperlink, you just click done. You can always get back to your fixed asset log here by clicking on fixed asset log, clicking on the latest one, and you'll see it. It will list out all of your batches and all the schedules. You can drill into the schedule here. You can see the schedule. You can click on the GL batch. This will take you directly to that journal entry transaction. This is your posting for this schedule. So that's completed. Take a look at that asset and in review. Should be created by now. There we go. There's that new one for equipment. So this asset is currently in a review state, which means it's not yet in service and it does not have any depreciation schedules associated with it. So if you have to modify it at this point, this is the perfect time to modify it. Change any of your dimension coding that you might need to. If anything else needs to change to add additional information that was not available on the AP integration, like say add in a photo or add in insurance details, you can do that at this step. You can also do basic things like that after it's in service, but make any modifications that you want. When you're ready to place it into service, click the checkbox next to it, click more actions, then generate financial depreciation schedule. This is twofold. Once I click yes, what this will do is it will switch that status from in review to in service and will also generate depreciation for that asset record. Hope I named it test. There we go. There's this one. So it's in service. It'll take a couple minutes too. So if you do this as your monthly process to review everything that's been in review, place it in service, don't go directly into post depreciation because it'll take a few minutes for the schedules to actually load. Just briefly on CIP, because I See, we're starting to get close on time. Want to leave plenty of time for questions. CIP capabilities are the same functionality within the accounts payable integration. So if you need to code to a CIP, code to your CIP fixed asset account. Just double check on this. That's why 2350. So just like the asset classes have to be assigned to that asset GL account, you do have to assign the CIP to a specific one for this to function. Now, granted, this is a wrong account, but this is how this functions. So this pop-up window opens up. You'd select the asset. So any CIP assets that you have will be listed here. And select that asset, select the GL posting date, and the item name itself. That item name, this is the component of that CIP asset. So that one expense. So maybe whatever specifically this is for, you can then add that name in. It will then accumulate these items. That CIP asset will accumulate those items in. And when you're ready to capitalize, you can capitalize that CIP asset into a fixed asset record. So we have this one test here. I click on that test. We have this one test item that's associated with it. As you continue to add items, they'll be listed here. There's also the amount will auto-populate based upon all the individual items. You can also add in, it's helpful to track here. There's really no reporting. It's not tied to the core budgeting module, but you can add in a budget for this project, this asset here. When you're ready to capitalize this, you can then click capitalize. And once you go through, you'll have to enter in the asset class you want it to assign to and the asset dimensions. When you capitalize it, it will then create a fixed asset record in the assets section in a review state, allow you to review it, and then place into service. Just hopping back over to the PowerPoint. So final comparison here, what solution might be right for you? Fixed assets management is definitely the long-term solution as it is embedded within the system. It's subscription-based, it's native to Intacct. It receives those quarterly release updates, but unfortunately, the functionality, as it's still relatively in its infancy, it is a little limited at this point. So it may be a fit for you if you do not use CIP, or do not have the immediate need for CIP, because that is a function that will be coming at some point relatively soon. You do not have SIG fixed assets. So unfortunately at the moment, if you do currently have the SIG fixed assets module, there is not a migration path over. That is hopefully expected possibly in early to mid 2026. We still have not received word on when that will happen. But if you have any interest in switching from SIG to SFAM, we'll keep you updated. AP integration. Now, AP integration is part of both, but it's also part of the fixed assets management module. And you use basic depreciation methods, so straight line, daily, double declining balance. It's not a fit, like I mentioned. If you currently have SIG fixed assets, custom financial periods, CIP, any specific needs to do like asset bar coding, splits, or partial disposals. That is not a functionality right now of the SFAM module. And we can probably get that last polling question up as we then switch to, are there any questions? So I see one question that came in for bill.com and AP processes. Integrations are a little tricky to work with. The SFAM system, we would be able to add in a custom field. It depends on your integration. And bill.com is one of the most preferred partners. For the most part, and since SIG has been the longest term fixed assets module itself, I traditionally say that it's best to go in once that bill is still in a posted state in the accounts payable module to then edit that bill and place the fixed asset information in there. It's trickier with SIG because those additional fields populate once you enter in that asset GL account. That's not necessarily inherent into importing or having a direct API integration. So I would say if you have SFAM, we can take a look into that and see if that integration will have the capabilities of entering in those custom fields. Because SFAM is still relatively new, we might run into a few other holdups on that. The benefits of switching to SFAM, let's see the second question here. It's native to Intacct. And while it's still in its infancy, it is really a powerful tool because it's embedded within your system. It's not version controlled like SIG. It's less clunky in its use in SIG. As you can see, let me just hop over here, go back to the demo. Just your components list here. It's a little difficult to navigate as opposed to here, your module here. Very, very easy to use. Another major benefit is the asset itself is a dimension, which allows you almost endless capabilities on reporting. That's where SIG is a little restricted, in which its main report, there are a handful other reports, but its main report is the roll forward report. And it's more difficult to actually create customized reports and pull information in from those reports. So it depends on the benefits that you would receive by, say, switching to SFAM, and especially at this point, if you do have SIG, then that migration path isn't there. So I think one of the reasons why they are holding on that migration path is to get SFAM more in line with the capabilities of SIG. So once that happens, that migration path will be there, and there will be that benefit of switching over. If you have any additional questions, like I said, reach out to your client account manager. We'll be happy to have a demo with you to walk through, or to have a discovery to walk through what module might be the best for you. If you do currently have one of the modules and you have any additional questions or you're running into errors or issues, always feel free to reach out to our support team and we'll be happy to assist with that. But thank you all so much for joining today's webinar. It was great discussing this with you today, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.